Ladies and gentlemen, if you ever have a chance to look at a beehive, you'll realize there are three things. Number one, there are the drones. The drone's task in life is very simple. All they have to do is have sexual intercourse with the queen bee. And once they are done depositing the sperm, their penis get ripped off and they die. The next thing, you have the workers. The workers' task is to basically work. They are all women. And they are involved in the process of getting honey, cross-pollination, and etc. And they live from 4 to 6 weeks. The third thing, you have the queen bee, a symbol of leadership and a symbol of elegance. You see, the thing with these bees, right, their life is so well defined. If only in our lives we knew what was our purpose. If only in our lives we knew at what time, what are we supposed to do. But here's the thing, it's just not that simple. So, you see, I don't have any fancy slides, and I don't have any remarkable achievements to brag about. But what I do have is a story that is very close to my heart, because it's simply my story. I define myself with three things. Number one, I think I am a neurotypical only child. How many of you here have heard stereotypes about only children? They are lazy, they are pampered, the parents give them everything they want. Yeah, anyone? Have you all heard anything like that? Yeah. You take all those opinions, you put it in a jar, you get me. Because I think that's what I embody. And the second thing is, I think I am a typical Taurian. It's the 21st century, but I do believe in horoscopes. So I do get offended if my friends ask me what's my horoscope, because I think I embody Taurus that well. The thing with Taurians, right, we are very hard-headed. We can be stubborn, and at times we can be very result-oriented, that we forget the simplest things in life that brings joy. And the third thing is, I always see myself as a game changer. How many of you here play board games? Right. For you board games people, you can play a game with me, but the difference is, I don't play to build friendship. I play board games to destroy friendship. To me, I come from that background where the aspect of winning is so important that if I have to choose between victory and friendship, I used to go after victory. And when I think about what brought all of this in me, right, it goes back to how I was in high school. See, being the only child, you have a lot of stress on you already. And I feel really bad for my parents. Number one, they prayed for like 10 years to get a child and they got me. So if I go wrong, all the 33 million gods will be blamed. And the second thing is, I always instill some pressure in me that it's my job to be the best version of how I can be. So when I was in high school, the problem with me was English was not my first language. I was an awkward child. So awkward that my class teacher told my dad that your son has great potential to be an international criminal. Because no one knows what he does, no one even knows he exists, but he's somewhere there. And when I reflected, my parents were not rich, but they were always rich with values. You see, my parents, I used to have this thing with my parents where I always said that, oh, I don't think you're doing enough to raise a child. But only the later parts of my life, I realized that sometimes someone, something is all the thing that they have. Sometimes what you view as a small thing is everything that they can give. So when I went into secondary school, like I said, I was an awkward child. I can't speak English. And every time when I try speaking, I creep people out. So I realized that, you know what? I'm going to become a writer, and I'm just going to write to save my life. Because when you write, nobody needs to know how you speak, and you can just write your life away, which is how I ended up in Nottingham doing an English degree. You see, someone who couldn't speak English doing an English degree was quite funny. And at that time, I remember my parents, my teachers, everyone was like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I was like, at this point, I don't know what is sure. And let me just go on with it. So when I came into university, that's where I think life-changing moments happen. And there were 3 key change moments that changed my life for who I was. Number 1, see, I was competitive. When I came into university, I was a scholar. And my mindset was, I have to be competitive. And at days when I can't compete with anyone else, I compete with myself. And that was also time-consuming and energy-consuming. And when I was competitive, I noticed that sometimes, in the end of the day, what's the point of having so many achievements when you are just going to be celebrating it on your own? Like yesterday was Valentine's Day, right? I don't know how many of you here are single. And I'm pretty sure there were a lot of empowering quotes about, oh, if you're single, it's all right, you only need you to survive. Ladies and gentlemen, that is sometimes quite rubbish, right? Though we can advocate for independence, we can advocate for you are all you need, be the change you want to see in the world, but what is that change that you can do? Mahatma Gandhi did not say that part. He only told you to be the change you wish to see. But how do you be the change? Nobody is going to tell you. So when I noticed this, I started taking things in a light where I realized that I should be more sensitive. Because I knew one day that I will be successful and I don't want to die alone. And the thought of having pets was scary. So even though when people said, it's okay, you can get pets and die alone, I'm like, no, they are more annoying than human beings. So it's all right. So that was the first sort of change that I wanted to do, where I wanted to start being more rational, I wanted to be more sensitive, and for once I wanted to stop competing. Because you can compete with all you want, and you can be the president, you can be whatever you want to be, but at that late night when you hit the sack, if you have that inch of loneliness like what I used to have, I noticed that that wasn't worth it. And I wanted to make that change. Now, the second thing is, just as being competitive, I was always fast in anything that I wanted to do. I drove fast, I was someone who had no patience, and everyone who was working under me feared me. And at one point, I thought, that's pretty cool. Okay, you fear me. Adolf Hitler was cool, guys. So at that one point, when I noticed that maybe being fast is all I could do, right? There was one day where I was on the highway, and like I said, I like to be fast. And good enough, an accident happened. And I didn't die, so I wouldn't be here. I survived. But my car didn't. It was a new car, and my car didn't survive that. But you know what I realized from this accident? The first thing that came to my mind was, oh, I'm alive. And the second thing was, now because of this accident, I value life more. But ladies and gentlemen, how many accidents do you want to go through to come to that conclusion that you should value life more? Every time when you make a mistake, you can be like, oh, at least now I know how to do this. But how many mistakes you think you can afford in this life to be there and be like, you know what, I can make this change. Oh, now I know how to do this. Oh, now I know this is good. But I realized that in that accident, when I saw how everyone was terrified, I was still cool because I was like, okay, insurance, everything is good, no one is dead. But it dawned on me that one split second could have changed your life forever. And you owe your life to the people around you. And sometimes you do have a role to play in everyone else's life. And that's when I realized that, maybe being fast is not the best thing. It's okay to slow down. When I look at my juniors in university now, I always tell them, don't grow up too quickly. Never chase after those titles, and sometimes if you can sleep instead of working, you sleep. Because there will come a time where you cannot afford sleep, and you're going to regret it. And that is something that I wish people told me, that what is so important in you trying to be the best version if you're going to jeopardize yourself in that process? Mental health is one thing, but in the end of the day, if you are just going to be the best version of yourself, and in the process of it, you lose friends, you lose sleep, trust me, when you're on your deathbed, your accomplishments is not going to be helping you. You're going to be reflecting about all those times when your friends were busy partying and you chose to take up a position and suffer. You could have gone partying. But don't take my words seriously and go partying. That's not what I mean. But what I mean is that sometimes it's perfectly fine to not be in the lead. Sometimes it's perfectly fine to not be that overachiever. Sometimes it's perfectly fine to be that mediocre person who enjoys life. Because trust me, successful people have bigger problems than you. And you don't want to be there. And that's another thing that I learned about change, that it is so scary because you are going to surrender a sense of security of yours and you have no idea what life is going to give you in return. Now, the third thing is, when I was finishing university, I went to this university leadership development program. See, this program is like Shark Ocean. There were around 4,000 applicants, and out of the 4,000 applicants, they pick 80 people. So imagine if in a group of friends, you're always on top of the league. Now, if they pick all those people on top of their own leagues, and they put them together, it's chaotic. Everyone was there to win. Everyone was very competitive. And me, being me again, I was like, okay, I'm going to have a lot of good competition. If you're going to be fierce, I will give a good fierce run. And that's when I met this girl named Chloe, where she was an amazing leader in what she was doing. And she knew me so well because she saw what I was doing and she saw how I was doing things. And she came to me and she was having this conversation. And there's this one thing that she told me that, you know, Dinesh, you can be that overachiever that everyone can look up to. You can be the person who is so good in whatever you do. You can be a CEO one day and etc. But when you die, you will die one day. So when you die, and at your funeral, if everything that people is going to remember about you are your achievements, oh, Dinesh was the CEO, Dinesh did this, Dinesh was that. But if no one is going to remember about how kind you were to others, and if no one is ever going to be like, oh, there was one time where I was going through an adversity and he actually helped me out, and then there's no purpose to what you have lived. You see, I have a good shield of ego usually, but that night, those words shot me. And that's when I realized that sometimes we are all extremely busy chasing after all these achievements, chasing after good grades. Good grades are important, you need it to get employed. And chasing after all these great things without realizing that deep down as a person, there's more to life than just these achievements. So when I came back from the camp, I realized that maybe it's all right to lose your ego. Maybe it's fine to lose an argument. I was a debater, and losing an argument was my worst nightmare. See, when people are fighting, I used to fight till my last breath to prove my point right. But sometimes losing that argument is probably better than losing that friend. And sometimes being kind to others is more important than winning in all these things. So when I took a step back and I realized that our life is way more complicated than it already is. So if I could ask you to do one thing, take out your handphones. I believe you all have handphones, right? Take out your handphone. Go to your Instagram, WhatsApp, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever, and reflect, when was the last time you did something for the first time? When was the last time you tried something new? When was the last time you let go of that comfort zone and did something for the first time? Because to me, being in that comfort zone was what I always loved to do. And I always thought that I am a brave person because whatever people threw at me, I was able to absorb it and still perform. But ladies and gentlemen, that's when I realized that being strong and being brave is two different things. If you are carrying all those burden on you and you are still surviving, yeah, you are being strong. But someone who is being brave will know when to stop. Someone who is being brave will take that leap of faith and make radical decisions. And that's what I noticed about myself, where I am so used to being that strong person. I'm so used to always perform. But at times when I needed to be brave, I wasn't brave. And I've reached a point in life where I do help out people in various areas. And sometimes people always ask me, Dinesh, what's the best life advice you can ever give someone? And I always tell them this, and I will tell you this. The best advice anyone could ever give you, stop asking for advice. You see, we go after people who have achievements because we look up to them. But how well do we know each other? How well do you know yourself to make that tiny, weeny change in your life that will make you a better person? You don't have to make ridiculous changes and go for a presidency, or you don't have to be in power to make changes. If you make small changes than how you were yesterday, then you should be proud of yourself. And you can never compare yourself with others because you cannot use someone else's ruler to compare your achievements. You see, in my age, it's very easy to always compete and be like, oh, I'm working here, or you're doing that, and I'm still unemployed. You see, being unemployed or being late in a game is never a bad thing. Sometimes the best winners are those who lost all their battles first, but won the war in the end. So if I could leave you with one thing, remember at the start I said, there are three kinds of bees: the drones, the workers, and the solitary queen bee. And our life is not that simple. But when we can't even figure out things to do with our life, why are we being obsessed with bees? Why are we always asking, is the cup half full or half filled, when you don't even know if your cup exists in the first place? So, agents of change. When you go back today, if I could leave you with one thing, it's this: change can happen overnight. Don't wait until the moment when things are too late. If there's someone that you need to apologize to them. Trust me, you will sleep better. And sometimes if you feel like you are being burdened and you have so many things going on, like once like what I felt, it's fine to take a step back and just be brave. Because you may lose the small games, but when life comes at you with its best shot, you can still stand strong and defeat it at its best shot. And if that's one thing I can tell you is, change, but don't change so much because you will get lost and no Waze or Google Map can bring you back to yourself. Thank you very much.